Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we are going to continue, inshallah. So I'm in another room now. So if you are there, then please let me know. Okay. So أعوذ الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I'm in another room now. So behind me you have a pyramid that's not the Illuminati pyramid. It's just a mirror. Okay. So beautifying the voice with the Quran. The scholars of the earlier generations, including companions, the successors, and the scholars of various regions after them, the Imams of the Muslims, are in agreement that it is recommended to beautify the voice when reciting the Quran. The statements and actions are well known to the furthest extent, so there is no need or use in citing individual instances. The evidence for this is the hadith of the Messenger ﷺ that are well circulated amongst the general public and the elite. Adore the Quran with your voices. Indeed, he was given mizmar in the hadith. Surely Allah listens more attentively. All of these words were mentioned above. In the section on the superiority of reciting distinctly, there is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mughaffal concerning the Prophet ﷺ reciting in a vibrant tone. And there's the hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and the hadith of Abu Lubaba that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does not sing the Quran is not of one of us. Yani, if you recite the Quran and you just go Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, like this, then you are not considered to be from the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, the majority of scholars say that the messenger of meaning of not sing is not beautifying his voice. Al-Barra said, I heard the Messenger of Allah وسلم, recite Surah At-Teen in the nightfall prayer. I have not heard anyone with a voice more beautiful than his. The scholars said that it is recommended to beautify the voice and to adorn it with recitation as long as it does not exceed the proper limits of recitation by being overly stretched out. If the recitation is exaggerated such that a letter is added or is muffled, then it is unlawful. What we call this in the knowledge of tajweed is very often al-idkhal, so that you do this to stick to the tone. Now, I'm not a very good Abdul Basit kind of reader, but it would sound, and I'm not saying that he does this, but usually it happens when people recite in a slower way. So, إن أصحاب الجنة, يعني I said Jannah, Jannah. This is wrong. It's Jannah. There is no يعني natural lengthening here. It's just one count. صح? So when I go جنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. I don't know how they do it. Anyway, I tried. I tried to do my best to do it wrong, but it was actually right. So, whatever. So if you go like Jannah, do you hear this? Like the Jannah thing? This is what we call idkhal. It is that you are going to to prolong a one counter and turn it into a two counter because you want to give it a certain hold on to the melody you have in your head, or to the tune that you are going by, being it sikka, being it nahawand, being it rust, and so forth. Anyway, Allah. Reciting with a melodious fashion. As for reciting in a melodious tone, Imam Shafi rahimahullah has said, in places I dislike it, and in other places I do not dislike it. Our Shafi companion said that it is not a matter of two opinions. Instead, it pertains to detailed rulings. If one is excessive in stretching out the recitation exceeds the limits, then this is what Imam Shafi disliked. But if the reciter does not exceed this merit, then this is what Imam Shafi did not dislike. The master Judge Mawardi said in his book Al-Hawi, recitation using modes of melody that remove the utterance of the Quran from its original phrasing by inserting vowelation. So idkhal is inserting vowelation, harakat into it, removing vowelation from it, elongating what should be short, shortening what should be elongated, or stretching out words such that it voids its meaning or obscures it. This recitation is unlawful and renders its reciter morally corrupt. And one who listens to it sins, since he deviates from the Quran straight matter to what is crooked. And Allah Most High said, it is a Quran in Arabic without any crookedness. Al-Mawardi said, if the melody does not remove the Quran from its original phrasing nor the reciter from its clear recitation, it is permissible since the reciter augments its beauty with its melody. This is a statement of the master judge Al-Mawardi. Some ignorant laymen are afflicted with the former illicit type of recitation using unlawful melodies, and so are ignoble fools who recite at funerals and some festivals. This is manifestly unlawful innovation. Everyone listening to it sins just as the master judge has said, and everyone capable of stopping such recitation or censoring it is sinful and if he does not do so. Toward this end, I have expended some of my abilities, and I hope that Allah most He gives success for the sake of its removal to those who are qualified to do so and grant them well-being. Ibn al-Muzani's Mukhtasar al-Shafi'i says a reciter beautifies his voice in whatever manner it may be. He said, I like what is recited slowly and with sadness. The lexicographers say that recitation is slow when it is said to be drawn out without being unnecessarily elongated. And it is said that one recites with sadness if he softens his voice. Ibn Abi Dawood has narrated with his chain of narration that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu read Surah Al-Takwir, making it sad, resembling a dirge. It is related in the Sunan of Ibn Abi Dawood, of Abu Dawood, that Abu Mulaika was asked, what is your opinion if one's voice is not beautiful? He replied, he should beautify it as much as he is able. So now, yani this is what we would often refer to as al-qira'ah tafsiriyya. And the qira'ah tafsiriyya meaning that with the intonation of your voice, you are going to um, with the intonation of your voice, you're going to reflect the meaning or the atmosphere or the emotions yani, that are connected to this verse. So you are not going to read, for example, إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون. You are saying that Ashab al-Jannah are very happy today. So why are you giving the impression that they are crying and that they are in a depression? So you are going to try to make it a bit different. In Ashab al-Jannati and so forth. I'm sorry, my voice is gone, so I can't. So I'm going to try it again. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم. And now comes the sad part. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. So even the Amr, when the command is given, it sounds different. وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. And then criticize again. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. So in reality, in the قراءة تفسيرية, you are going, and this can be in your own way, you are going to reflect the emotions that are behind these ayat. Nam, so Surah Al-Shams is very very short, and it's very straightforward, and it is talking about beautiful things as well. So all of this needs to be reflected in your recitation. Is that clear? So this is even more important than the tune you have. It is the emotions that are hidden behind the verses. So, and then also Surah Al-Fatiha for yourself can change. Like sometimes Surah Al-Fatiha, if you are in a period where you're very happy and thinking about the blessings, you might read الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. But when you are now in a period where you sin much more and you feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rabb, is looking at you, you can say الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك and so forth. So you are going to look for the correct intonation to what? To reflect the emotions that these ayat actually create in the center of your heart. Is that clear? Yes, learning Arabic is essential, definitely. That's definitely essential. So, and then as well, Khayyam is these sorry, these different tunes that the Arabs had. They are actually used for this. It's almost impossible to read Nahawand in a sad voice. Nahawand is what I usually read, right? So that when you come to Jahannam, it's very difficult. No? وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. So you see, there is always this form of happiness sounding thing, even though that you experience the sadness, but it wouldn't be the most preferred tune to use for Jahannam and use for these other things. So it all depends on, unless you want to read it with a form of sarcasm, for example. And sarcasm is something which we find in the Quran, which we call sarcasm. We don't say Allah yani, uses sarcasm in the Quran. But Allah says, and give the glad tidings to the munafiqeen that they are going to hellfire. So, I mean, there is no glad tiding about that. So it's a form of sarcasm, according to us. So if 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 you see this now, like when Allah says, for example, is this better, or the shajaratu zaqum? Nam, this is also a form of sarcasm. So if you are now going to look at all of this and you're going to understand the balagha of the Quran, you are going to understand, then all of a sudden you can do the qira'ah, which is of the highest level, which I call qira'atu, or which we call qira'ah tafsiriyah. And the qira'ah tafsiriyah is the best way to recite the Quran and reflect its emotions and so much more. Wallahu alam. Okay. Seeking a wholesome, beautiful recitation. Know that many among the righteous forebears would request those who recite with beautiful voices to recite while they listen on. There is agreement that this is recommended. It is the habit of the elite devoted worshippers and the righteous worshippers of Allah, and it is an established sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ himself. It is rigorously authenticated that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said to me, recite the Quran to me. I said, O Messenger of Allah, shall I recite to you while it was revealed to you? He said, I love to hear it from someone other than myself, so I recited Surah An-Nisa until I came to this verse. How will it be when we bring a witness from each every nation, and we bring you, O Muhammad, as a witness against these people? He said, enough. I turned to him, and his eyes were brimming with tears. Darimi and others related with their chains of narration that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu would say to Abu Musa al-Ashari, remind us of our Lord, and Abu Musa would then recite the Quran to him. The accounts concerning this are well known and many. Some among the Salihin have actually died because of the powerful recitations of those whom they had asked to recite, and Allah knows best. Reciting at assemblies. Some scholars recommend that an assembly gathered to hear or study the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ should commence and then conclude with a reciter possessed of a beautiful voice, reciting something brief from the Quran. In these contexts, the reciter should recite what is appropriate and suitable for the assembly. His recitations, like when you recite at a marriage, you're not going to recite about divorce, is it? His recitation should include verses in which there is hope, or when a child is born, you're not gonna uh, you're not gonna recite أينما تكونوا يدرككم الموت. Yani wherever you are, death will find you. I mean, this is not balagha. Yani the Quran is baligh, but you choosing these verses at that particular instance is not balagha. Naam? Or you visit a king or a president or whatever Muslim asked you to recite the Quran in his assembly, and you start with وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. يعني, and those who do not judge by that which Allah has revealed are kuffar. So you are going to think about what to recite in the particular uh, moment you're in. No. Anyway, that would be balagha. His recitation should include verses. This is something we should do then, Khayyam. Like when we have our classes, let us start reading 1 minute, 2 minutes to practice this. And when it's about the Quran, it's Quran. When it's about language in the Quran. When it's about the prophetic soul and so forth. So we're going to put this sunnah into practice, inshallah. So get ready, Hisham, if you're attending this, and you will be our reciter of all our gatherings. His recitation should include verses in which there is hope, fear, and exhortation, having abstinence in this world, awakening desire and arousal for the hereafter, and diminishing vain hopes, and the importance of having noble character. Reading what has complete meaning. When the reciter begins in the middle of a chapter or does not stop at its end, he should start from the previous words of the surah that are related to one another in meaning. The same applies when the reciter stops on words that are related to each other or that come at the end of a dialogue. When beginning and stopping, the reciter should not limit himself to strict textual diversions of the Quran, like stopping or starting at tenths or sixtieths and thirtieths of the text, since he might be in the middle of an interrelated passage, like the following thirtieths of the Quran, containing the words of Allah the Most High, that impart meaning only when read with what is connected. So you can read this for yourself. So I read this part. It's just a couple of lines. It is the same for 60ths, like the praise of the Most High, and I remember Allah on the appointed days, and shall I tell you of better than that? The reciter should not begin or stop at any of these places or their like. Any of these places or their like, since they are related in meaning to what came before it. People should not be deceived by reciters who ignore this etiquette and do not ponder these meanings. The reciter should follow the example of what Al-Hakim ibn Abdullah, Abu Abdullah, narrated with his chain of narration, that Fudayl ibn Iyad radiallahu anhu said, do not feel repelled from the paths of guidance by how small is the number of its people, nor be deceived by the large number of those who are ruined. And do not be harmed by how small is the number of those making progress. Because of this meaning, the scholars have said that reciting a short chapter in its entirety is better than reciting the same amount of a large chapter in part, since the interrelatedness of its meanings may be hidden to some people in some circumstances. Ibn Abi Dawood has narrated with the chain of narration that Abdullah ibn Abi Hudayl, the well-known successor, said they disliked it when they read a part of a verse and left out a part. So here we have actually different books that our scholars have written with regards to where it is best to stop and where it is better not to stop. So it is actually a separate knowledge. It is a knowledge that our scholars have written books about. So it is very good for you to read these books, inshallah, and to know where to stop. Because sometimes stopping at certain places can be offensive. Like if you were to read Inna Allah la yastahi, yani Allah has no shyness. So why we know that one of the attributes that we attribute to him, but it in no way resembles our shyness, is that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna Allah hayyi," and so this is very important. So Allah, yes, inshallah, when we are together, we are going to have a look in the second part at the Waqf wal Ibtida, inshallah. But you can take a very easy going one of Zakaria al Ansari. Just look for Waqf wal Ibtida, Zakaria al Ansari, and you will find it. With your permission, because earlier on I couldn't grab a coffee, I'm going to grab it now, seeing that if they can give it to me, because my voice keeps on going. One more, please. And you can have a look at the beautiful luster. There you go, mashallah. Bismillah. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, sorry that I was gone. Okay, let's continue. Um, so the book of Zakaria al-Ansari would be the best book for you to read. It's very easygoing. I wouldn't say yeah, it's actually very brief. You don't need more than that, but very often you're in need of explanation. But as to start using it, it would be practicing it. It is very straightforward. When is it offensive to read the Quran? Know that reciting the Quran in general is absolutely recommended, except for specific circumstances where the Sharia has prohibited its recitation. I will now mention those circumstances that come to my mind, but I will not include their proofs since they are well known. It is offensive to recite while one is bowing, prostrating, saying the tashahhud and other stations of the prayer salah other than it is offensive for someone following the prayer leader imam to recite anything in addition to al-Fatiha during a notable prayer, that is dawn, sunset, and nightfall prayers, and the two first rak'at of it, of course. When he hears the imam's recitation, it is offensive to recite while relieving oneself or while drowsing, or any similar circumstance in which the Quran becomes unintelligible to one. During the Friday prayer, it is offensive to recite during the Friday sermon for anyone who hears it. However, it is not offensive for someone who does not hear the sermon, rather, it is recommended. This is a sound and preferred opinion. The verdict that it is offensive has been related from Tawus, and that it is not offensive according to Ibrahim al-Nakhai. It is possible to reconcile between their two statements, applying that we said regarding what our Shafi'i companions have mentioned, namely that it is a matter of detail rather than something absolute. Today we don't have this problem as we have mics in the mosque, and they would say that it is allowed. Why? Because if you don't hear it, well, then what are you going to do? So then you just read the Quran yourself. Reciting while going around the Kaaba. It is not offensive to recite while going around the Kaaba. This is our madhab, and most of the scholars have iterated this opinion. Ibn Mundhir quotes from Ata Mujahid, Sheikh, what if one is in sajda outside of prayer seeking forgiveness and then recites a verse where Allah mentioned His mercy? It depends on the madhab you are in. If it is merely a dua, then definitely it would be okay. But if it is to recite the Quran, it would be wrong. Um, so if you use it because it is the most eloquent of ad'iyah, and you say it with the intention to what? To supplicate, not to recite, then there shouldn't be a problem. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala. which is not the same as we mentioned last time when a lady would be menstruating, or when someone would be in janaba, that he in our madhab can't recite the Quran, not even with the intention of it being a dua. No. Ibn Mundhir quoted from Ata, Mujahid ibn al-Mubarak, Abu Thawr, and the people of Juri, Juridisal, I'm sorry, opinion, Ahl al-Rai, and he also conveys it from Hassan al-Basri. Well, they would say base yourself on the dua, but change it, not changing the Quran. Like you would say, ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. Then it would be preferred to go by the meanings of it rather than the exact wording of it. Um, so by changing something and turning it into your own, that would get priority. Um, But Urwa ibn Zubayr and Malik hold that reciting while going around the Kaaba is offensive. The sound position, however, is the former. The discussion on the difference concerning reciting in a bathhouse and along a road one travels, and concerning one's uh, whose mouth is unclean, has preceded. Rejected innovations. One of the rejected innovations regarding the recitation of the Quran is what the ignorant do when praying Taraweeh, special Ramadan prayer amongst common folk. They recite Quran Surah Al-An'am in the final rak'ah of the seventh night, believing that it is recommended. They combine several rejected matters, such as their belief that this in itself is recommended, deluding lay folk into thinking that it is indeed recommended, lengthening the second rak'ah more than the first, while the established prophetic norm Sunnah is making the first longer, being lengthy and burdensome on the worshippers following them, and interrupting the sequence of the recitation. Some ignorant people engage in similar innovation during the morning on Friday prayer. Today I didn't see anybody doing this, but in his time apparently they did, deliberately reciting a passage of the Quran that calls for prostration other than Surah Al-Sajda, while the Sunnah is to recite Surah Al-Sajda in the first rak'ah and Surah Al-Insan in the second, and so forth. Miscellaneous issues of concern. If one happens to pass wind while he is reciting outside of prayer, then he should cease reciting until it completely exits, and then he may resume. This is how Ibn Abi Dawood and others related it from Ata and its fine etiquette. So if you are reading, now, yani not from the Mus'haf, not with the Mus'haf in your hand, and you feel that you need to pass wind, and you're in a position where you're not able to go to the bathroom to do this, and you're not in the midst of people, in some cultures, and I've been to places where people find it normal to pass wind in gatherings. They would find it very normal. And I would be sitting behind someone who would just do this. And I was in shock. And then I looked to my right. I said, is this normal here? He said, what? I said, wind. He said, why wouldn't it be normal? So, yeah. Anyway, Allah musta'an. So, if one were to feel that he needs to pass wind, then he waits until the wind has yani, left the body, and then can continue writing, can continue reading. Yes. If one yawns, one should cease reciting. So you're not going to do like I'm doing now with the Quran. That I was not really yawning, by the way. So that is very disliked. Even when talking to people, it is impolite from an Islamic point of view. We try to oppress it. Like, this is what we are going to do. If one yawns, one should cease reciting, and that's because our brain is in need of oxygen. If one yawns, one should cease reciting until he finishes yawning and then resume. Mujahid holds this view and it is acceptable. This is quoted by what is established from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that the Messenger of Allah said, if one of you yawns, let him press his hand against his mouth, for indeed Satan enters. And also when you make noise while yawning, then shaitan is laughing through your body, like the Prophet ﷺ said. Like if you go like oh, 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 like people do this, right? Like, oh, oh. I really dislike this. Sometimes students do this in front of me, or they stretch, like people stretch. This is also something which I really dislike. Like they would go like this. This is really not good. When you go like this. This is so impolite. You should stop doing this actually in front of people, and definitely in front of your parents. Things said with certain verse. It is good etiquette that one lowers the voice when reciting certain statements of Allah in majesty. As in the verses, the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. The Jews say God hand is fettered. They say Allah, the All Merciful, has begotten a son. That is what Ibrahim al-Nakha'i would do. Ibn Abi Dawood related with a weekly authentic chain of the transmitters that the Sha'bi was once asked, if a person recites God and his angels bless the Prophet, O you who believe, bless him and salute him with a worthy salutation, should he pray upon the Prophet ﷺ? He said yes. It is recommended for the reciter to repeat what Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu related from the Prophet ﷺ. Whoever recites Surah At-Teen and says, is God not the best of judges? He should say, Bala wa ana ala dhalika min ash-shahideen. And I am among those who bear witness. Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi related it with a weak chain of narration from an unnamed Bedouin from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Tirmidhi said this hadith was related with this chain from a Bedouin by way of Abu Hurairah, and he said he was not named. Ibn Abi Dawood and others related this hadith with something added beyond the narration of Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi. Whoever recites the end of Surah Al-Qiyamah, is he then not able to raise the dead to life? He should say, Bala wa ana ashhad. Whoever recites, in what words after this will they believe, should say, Amantu billah. It is related that whenever Abdullah ibn Abbas, Zubair, and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu recite Surah Al-A'la, they would say Subhan Rabbi al-A'la, and that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu would repeat it 3 times. It is related that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu prayed and recited at the end of Surah Bani Israel and then said Alhamdulillahi lam Alhamdulillahi ladhi lam yattakhidh walada. Some of our Shafi'i companions stated that it is recommended to say during the prayer what we have just mentioned in the hadith of Abu Huraira regarding the 3 surah. It is likewise recommended to say the other things that we mentioned and their like, and Allah knows best. Okay, so here, mashallah, coffee did me good. Bismillah. So here, barakallahu fikum, you see this. So when you read, for example, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا, and then you say سُبْحَانَهُ بَلْ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاءِ وَآتِي, and so forth. So when you say وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا, you're going to lower your voice. When you reply, you are going to lift your voice like a knockout, right? So you say وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا سُبْحَانَهُ بَلْ لَهُ. You see? وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا سُبْحَانَهُ. You see? So when every time you come to an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being described in a way that does not befit him, then you are going to lower your voice. Okay. Reciting the Quran intending it to be speech. Ibn Abi Dawood cited disagreement concerning this matter. It is related from Ibrahim al-Nakha'i that he disliked explaining the Quran with some worldly incident. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu in Mecca read during the sunset prayer by the fig and the olive in the Mount of Sinai and raised his voice at the next verse, and by this secure city. Hukaym ibn Sa'ad said that a member of the Muhakima sect came to Ali radiallahu anhu while he was in the morning prayer and recited to Ali, if you were to ascribe partners to God, all your works will be in vain. And Ali responded while still in prayer, so have patience, God's promise is true, and let not those who have no certainty make you impatient. Our Shafi'i companions said that if a person seeks permission to enter from someone who is in prayer, who then recites, enter it with safety and security, whether he intended thereby only recitation or intended both recitation and notification, it does not nullify his prayer. But if he intended notification alone, and the intention for recitation did not occur to him, then his prayer is nullified. A reciter gives greetings. If one recites while walking and then comes across people, it is recommended to interrupt the recitation, greet the people, and then resume his recitation. And if upon resuming he repeats the supplication seeking protection from God, it is excellent. And it is the same if he were sitting as he recites and someone passes by him. Greeting a reciter. Imam Abu Hassan al-Wahidi said it is best to meet greeting someone who is reciting because he is occupied with recitation. But if someone gives him greetings, it is sufficient for the reciter to reply with a gesture. And he wishes to reply with an utterance, then he may reply as such, but then repeats the supplication seeking protection from God. A'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim. What Imam Abu Hassan said is weak. However, the stronger opinion is that it is obligatory to reply to someone's greeting with an utterance. Yes, that's true. Our Shafi'i companion said that if someone offers greetings upon entering the Friday sermon, though we hold the opinion that being silent is sunnah, then it is obligatory to return his greetings according to the soundness of 2 opinions. So in the midst of recitation, in which there is agreement that it is not unlawful to speak therein, it is even more pressing to return the greeting, even though returning a greeting is obligatory in general, and Allah knows best. Sneezing during one's recitation. If one sneezes while reciting, it is recommended for him to say Alhamdulillah. It is the same if one sneezes during the prayer. If a person recites outside of the prayer, hears someone else sneeze and say Alhamdulillah, then he should say Yarhamukallah. And what do you reply then? When you say Achoo, yeah, you sneeze. And you say Alhamdulillah. Somebody tells you Yarhamukallah. What do you say? Allah. Do you know when your Allah, when your legs are sleeping? My legs are sleeping. Okay. Okay. So what do you reply? يهديك الله يهدينا ويهديكم الله. The, the the correct answer in the light of the Sunnah would be يهديكم الله ويصلح بالكم. يهديكم الله ويصلح بالكم. نعم يهديكم الله ويصلح بالكم. نعم. You can also say ربي وربك الله. So the reason why they say Yarhamukallah, usually you say this when somebody has passed away, is because when you sneeze, yani so many beautiful things happen, right? There is so much pressure in your body, subhanAllah, that your eyes automatically close. If you were to sneeze with your eyes open, then your eyeballs would just be ejected. Um, they would be ejected like if you were to sneeze with your eyes open. Try. Don't go like this, please, right? Just, you can't. There's so much force. And also they say that when you sneeze that your heart seems to be stopping because of all the pressure, like it skips a beat. And then it was like you passed away and were given back life. You were you were brought to life again by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why you say Yarhamkallah. Anyway, the call to prayer. If a reciter hears someone make the call to prayer, he should interrupt his recitation and reply to the call as established in the Sunnah. According to us Ahnaf, we say that if a call to prayer is a bid'ah call to prayer, then you don't have to do this. And what is a bid'ah call to prayer? Well, it is this very long 5 minute adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You know these ones? Then you just do yourself Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Subhanallah, Rasulullah, Subhanallah, Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, Hayya ala falah. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي بعثه إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. خلاص, it took me for 25 seconds. In 25 seconds, instead of stopping for 5-6 minutes just because people like the sound of it. Doesn't make sense. So we Ahnaf, we say no, we are not obliged to respond to this bid'i hadith. And that is what my scholar Ashraf Munib said. And he explained, he taught us al-hadiyya al-ala'iyya in Hanafi fiqh. Okay. So, if a reciter hears someone make the call to the adhan, he should interrupt his recitation and reply to the call by repeating the utterance of the call to prayer and the call for the commencement of prayer. He then may return to his recitation. Our Shafi'i companions agree upon this. But I have seen some people with a lot of Shafi'i fiqh knowledge, like Sheikh Nuh Hamim Keller, for example. When I was attending one of his classes, he would do this as well. So when this long adhan would go off, then he would just say it for himself, and he is without any doubt a very, very strong Shafi'i scholar. So subhanAllah, he would practice this as well. So I don't know whether it is a Shafi'i opinion or whether it's something which is not a Shafi'i opinion, but I would doubt it because the Shaykh himself holds on very strictly to the Shafi'i fiqh. So I don't know, but I saw him do this, but I don't know if it is from the Shafi'i fiqh. So I don't know. Replying to a question. If something is requested from a person reciting the Quran, it is possible for him to respond to the petitioner by way of a known gesture, and the reciter knows that it will not break the heart of the petitioner and it will not harm the friendship between them, and that like that it's better to answer by way of gesture and not to interrupt the recitation, but it's permissible for the reciter to interrupt his recitation. Reciting and standing for someone. If someone of superior knowledge, righteousness, nobility, old age, without infirmity, the same as I just said, the same as I just did. Like when he hears the very long adhan, he would just go الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والبعث مقام محمود الذي وأتاه إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. And then he would continue his dars. I'm going to have a look how I can look at the chat. Oh, live chat. Yes. Um, is there a dalil for the long Saudi adhan? No, there's no dalil. There is no dalil for the long adhan. It's not just in Saudi, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Okay. Okay, let's continue here. Um, Reciting and standing for someone. If someone of superior knowledge, righteousness, nobility, old age, or prestige from position, parentage, or some other reason passes by someone reciting there is no harm in the reciter standing to greet him out of respect and deference, but not out of ostentation or glorifying. In fact, standing is recommended. Yeah, Rabbi. Today, when you stand for a scholar, yani when scholars come in, we used to stand up, right? And then people would say, okay, you're all going to hellfire. So we don't believe this. We believe that standing for a teacher when he comes in, even when you're sitting, is recommended. Yes, it is not a good bid'ah. No, it's not a good bid'ah. But not out of ostentation or glorifying. Yani the Prophet ﷺ used to stand up, get up for Fatima radiallahu anha. Whenever she would come into the room, he would stand up for her. And he would walk towards her. That's his daughter. So he would have an authoritative position over her. But nevertheless, he would stand up for her out of love and respect. No, but not out of ostentation and glorifying. Ostentation, yani how? When someone requires from students, for example, to stand up for him. That would be wrong. That would be, yani you oblige them to do so. Okay. Indeed, standing out of difference has been affirmed by the action of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions who did so in the Prophet ﷺ's presence. Yes, it is. Presence and by his order, and affirmed by the action of the successors and those after them, including the righteous scholars. I have composed a monograph regarding the issue of standing out of respect. I mentioned therein the hadith and accounts that recommend it and prohibit it, and I show the weakness of those accounts which are weakly authenticated, the authenticity of those that are rigorously authenticated, and the answer to that which implies that it is prohibited while in fact there is no prohibition. I elucidated all of this by the praise of God Most High. So whoever has doubts concerning any of its ahadith and reviews, it will find what removes doubt by the will of Allah Most High. Yani he wrote a book about the permissibility of standing up for people with knowledge and kissing hands of worshippers and foreheads. So we have this Salafi thing going on where they say it's wrong, it's not permissible, and this and that. But in reality, they also say that you are not allowed to follow the full madahib. But when you look today, it looks like there are new madahib again. You have the madhab of Imam al-Madkhali, you have the madhab of Imam al-Albani, you have the madhab of al-Uthaymeen, you have the madhab of Ibn Baz, and they are all madahib. And if you ask who said this, al-Albani, who said this, al-Uthaymeen, well, you're doing exactly the same as the four, as people following the four schools. The only difference is that the followers of the four schools were scholars. So we are following scholars that decided to follow these four imams. So anyway, so very often they point the finger because of reasons they find in themselves, which is very strange. And this is maybe why François de la Rochefoucauld, François de la Rochefoucauld, who wrote his Maximes and was a Christian, and it are the Maximes of François de la Rochefoucauld, meaning the Hikam. And he said the only reason why you criticize people is because they have something in them which reflects that which you have in yourself. So thank you, François. Valuable rulings associated with recitation during prayer. I take great liberty in summarizing these rulings since they are well known in the books of fiqh. Recitation is obligatory in the prescribed prayers according to the consensus of the scholars Maliki, Shafi, Ahmed, and the majority of the scholars said that reciting al-Fatiha in every rak'ah is specifically obligatory for all individuals. Abu Hanif and a group of scholars said that al-Fatiha is never specifically obligatory. Muayyan, that reciting al-Fatiha in the last two rak'at is never obligatory. So here it is important to say Abu Hanifa and a group of scholars said that Al-Fatiha is never specifically obligatory, meaning fard, but not meaning wajib. So anyway, the correct opinion is the former. Um, um, since evidence from the Sunnah made this clear, no, it hasn't. It suffices as proof that the Prophet sallallahu, and this is not to contradict Imam Nawawi, of course, it's just to stand up for the Hanafi with my small, little, tiny voice without any knowledge. It suffices as proof that the Prophet sallallahu said in rigorously authenticated hadith, a prayer in which al-Quran has not been recited is not sufficient. An additional verse. There is agreement among the scholars that it is recommended to recite the verses of the Fatiha after reciting the Fatiha, and in the first two rak'at of other prayers, they differ over whether or not it is recommended to recite additional verses in the third and fourth rak'ah. Shafi'i has two opinions on this. The newer position that is not recommended, while the older one is that it is not. Our Shafi'i companions state that if we hold that it is recommended, then there is no difference of opinion that it is indeed recommended that the recitation in the third and the fourth should be shorter than the recitation in the first two rak'at, and they said that the recitation in the third and the fourth rak'ah should be equivalent. Should the recitation in the first rak'ah be made longer than the second? There are two opinions concerning this. The standard opinion, according to the accomplished authorities, muhaqqiqeen, is that recitation of the first rak'ah be made long. This is the preferred opinion because of the rigorously authenticated hadith stating that Messenger of Allah sallallahu would lengthen his recitation in the first rak'ah unlike the length in the second. The benefit of this practice is that someone who came late to the prayer would make the first rak'ah, and Allah knows best. The latecomer. Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said that if someone joined an obligatory prayer after it had already commenced but was present with the Imam for the last two rak'at of say the afternoon prayer or another, and then he stands to finish the remaining rak'at, he owes. It is recommended that he recite a chapter after Surat al-Fatiha. The majority of our Shafi'i scholars said that this matter involves two opinions. Some say that it is based on the Shafi'i statement that one should recite al-Quran in addition to al-Fatiha in the last two rak'at. The other opinion is that it is not recommended. The correct opinion is the former, so that one's prayer is not void of the additional recitation, and Allah knows best. This ruling of reciting surahs in the last two rak'at applies to both someone leading the prayer and someone praying alone. Okay, so as you see, my goal is not to explain fiqh, which is mentioned here. The following a prayer. As for someone being led in prayer, then the prayer is silent. Al-Fatiha is obligatory and the additional chapter is recommended. If it is audible and he can hear the Imam's recitation, it is offensive for him to recite any additional chapter. There are two opinions regarding Al-Fatiha being obligatory to recite. The sound opinion is that it is obligatory, the other is that it is not. If one does not hear the Imam's recitation, the sound opinion is that Al-Fatiha is obligatory and that the additional chapter is recommended. Other opinions hold that Al-Fatiha is not obligatory, others say that it is obligatory and that the additional chapter is not recommended. Allah knows best. The funeral prayer. It is obligatory to read Surah Al-Fatiha and the first saying of Allahu Akbar after the first saying of Allahu Akbar during the funeral prayer. Supererogatory prayers. As for reciting Al-Fatiha and supererogatory prayers, this is considered indispensable. Saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our Shafi companions disagree over saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Al-Fatiha. Al-Qaffal said that it is obligatory wajib. His companion Al-Qadi Hussein said that saying of Basmala is conditional shart, part of the prayer. Others yet have said it is integral, rukun, part of the prayer, and this is the most preponderant opinion. Someone unable to recite Al-Fatiha. Someone going to drink a little bit again. Someone incapable of reciting Surah Al-Fatiha in all of these contexts may recite something else in its place. He may recite something else from the Quran of the same length. If he is incapable of that, then he may repeat invocations of the same length. Like Subhanallah or Alhamdulillah or La ilaha illallah. If he's incapable of anything at all, he stands for the length of time that it takes to recite Al-Fatiha and then he bows, and Allah knows best. I'm going to see what you have written, my dear friend. Who is it? Zaid. I think we would benefit by a Hanafi Hashia to this. There are a number of fiqh masail being mentioned here. Is there not that I know of. I don't know. But I think it's not really necessary. Because we find this in our books of fiqh. So for me, this is what I said at the very beginning. Like I will omit the fiqh explanations because as he is a Shafi'i, it's normal that he will just mention his madhab and refer sometimes very briefly to other madhab. But this is not the goal of the book. It's not the goal of the book. So he just mentioned it. But I don't know of a Hanafi explanation. Several surah in one rak'ah. There is no harm in joining chapters in a single rak'ah. It has been established in the authentic books of Bukhari Muslim that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, I know the chapters of that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would couple together in recitation. And the mentioned 20 chapters from the last two parts of the Quran, each of them two chapters in one rak'ah. We mentioned previously that a group of the pious forebears were won't won't yeah yeah okay. Sorry, that was Ines that came in. Let us continue. There's no harm in joining chapters in a single rak'ah. It has been established in the authentic books of Bukhari Muslim and so forth. Now, when a recitation should be audible, Muslims have consensus that it is recommended to recite the Quran audibly during the morning prayers, the Friday congregational prayers, the two Eid prayers, during the first two rak'at of the sunset, the nightfall prayers, during Taraweeh prayers, and the witr prayer that follows it. This is recommended for one leading a congregational prayer and for the individual alone. Someone who is led in prayer does not make his recitation audible according to the consensus. It is a sunnah that recitation be audible during the prayer occasioned by a lunar eclipse, but not audible during the prayer for a solar eclipse. The recitation is audible in the prayer in which worshippers supplicate for rain. It is not audible in a funeral prayer if it is performed during the day, but it is audible when prayed during the night, according to the sound preferred opinion in the Shafi'i madhab. Supererogatory prayers, recitation is not audible therein, daytime prayers, with the exception of what we have just mentioned concerning two Eid prayers and the prayer for rain. Our Shafi companions disagreed concerning night prayer vigil. The dominant position is that it is not audible. The second position is that it is indeed audible. A third position holds that one alternates his recitation between audibility and silence, and that is what Al-Baghawi chose. Okay, making up prayers. If one missed a prayer normally performed at night and made it up during the day, or if one misses a prayer normally performed during the day and made it up during the night, what aspect is taken into account in order to determine whether it should be audible or silent? The time in which it was missed or the time in which it was made up. Our Shafi companions have two opinions. The preponderant one is that the time in which the missed prayer is made up is taken into account. If one were to recite audibly when he should have been silent, or silent when he should have been audible, his prayer is valid though he has committed something offensive, but he does not need to make the prostrations for forgetfulness. Guidelines for recitation in silence and aloud. Know that what is meant by silence in recitation with regard to saying Allahu Akbar and other statements of the prayers that one recite them such that he hears them himself, which is not for the Hanafis, and this is important for me to mention. When we say that you don't recite, we don't just mean you don't, uh, yani, uh, you shouldn't make others hear you. It really means don't move your mouth. No? So when you're behind the imam, you don't move your mouth, but you can go in your mind over Surah Al-Fatiha, which I recommend you to do, of course. Know that what is meant by silence in recitation with regard to saying Allahu Akbar and other statements of the prayers that one recite them such that he hears them himself. It is indispensable to utter them such that he hears them, that is, if he is of sound hearing and there is no interference. But if one does not hear himself, his recitation of them is not valid, and neither are other invocations. There is no disagreement on this. The Imam pausing for silence. Our Shafi companion said that it is recommended for the Imam leading an audible prayer to remain silent during full periods while standing. First, silence after the opening Allahu Akbar in order to make an opening supplication. And so the followers may also say the opening Allahu Akbar. Second, the very brief pause right after reciting Surah Al-Fatiha and a brief pause between the completion of Al-Fatiha and saying Ameen, so that Ameen is not misconstrued to be actually part of Al-Fatiha. Third, a long pause after Ameen, so the followers themselves can silently read Al-Fatiha. And fourth, after finishing the recitation of Surah of the Quran in order to provide a separation between the recitation and saying Allahu Akbar before descending to bow. So what I want you to do, Barakallahu Fikum, is I want you to read a Hanafi book about the prayer. And I want this, meaning it's a part of your class. So I want you to know what the ruling is. You open a Hanafi book and you read about yani, reciting out loud during prayers and while making up your prayers. So just read it, and it's quite straightforward, inshallah. I'm not telling you that you should, you know, be self-taught, but rather, yani, go over it, inshallah. Okay. Are there any questions about what we have said today? Barakallahu fikum. How many did we read a good portion today? Uh, Khayab, we 25 pages. Okay, that's not a lot, is it? But we had quite some explanation. So Alhamdulillah, I think Subhanallah, there's really barakah in the time. If you think we read for 25 pages and we yani, we explained quite some things. So Subhanallah, really. And I had the impression that I explained more than ever. Subhanallah, incredible. You know why this is? Because we came together in an abnormal situation, meaning that you chose to follow the class online. I'm here with a phone not in my house, and you are there in your house, and you woke up this morning. So everybody is trying to give their best, you see, and to make an effort, and that is where barakah comes in. It's very easy for you or for me to say, you know what, in this situation, no class. But I saw, wallahi, one of my scholars, and I told this to Khayyam, and I told you last time, he had cancer, right? He couldn't speak, like his voice was like really like this, and he would give khutbah like this. So his mic would be close to his mouth, and then he would give khutbah. And he said, I will keep on talking until I die. This is my mission on the face of the earth. So for me, as long as, even if it's with the worst quality on the face of the earth, as long as we can hold on to teaching, we teach. And as long as we can hold on to studying, we study. Because, if you just think, Khayyam, Al-Bukhari had to travel for 3 months to receive one hadith. People would travel day and night. Now we are impatient, and not you. I'm not indirectly nor directly referring to you. Sometimes people say, oh, the quality of the video wasn't that good. Oh, this wasn't so good. Oh, it was not uploaded within an hour. Oh, poor you. SubhanAllah, I'm almost about to cry and pray janazah for your soul. I mean, the way that the students are today, the majority of them wouldn't make it. They wouldn't make it. So you need to, and I know you can say, yeah, but we need to have quality. Of course we do. But sometimes people are in a situation where it's impossible, where it's just impossible. I have. Anyway, so keep that in mind. Whenever you have students, teach them in whatever situation you are, unless it's like impossible. And when you are a student yourself, then follow classes, even if it's by phone. You don't care. You don't care. If they say, yeah, call me and I will teach you over the phone, and then you just do that, even if it's expensive. And don't say, oh, Sheikh, you know what? Just call me. No, no, you're going to call the Sheikh and you're going to pay for the phone call. You see? So, barakallahu fikum, try to hold up, the etiquette of knowledge and these kind of things, and never be fussy about anything. Don't be fussy about anything. You should know that scholars, and in this, I'm not referring to myself, because I don't refer to myself as scholar, but what you should know is that scholars and also teachers, very often they are tested a lot, because they are the inheritors of the prophets. Don't forget this. And so when scholars go through a lot of things, so their time is different, their occupation during their lives are different, what they go through is different, because it's another way of life, you see. So sometimes, subhanallah, it's just different. No. Anyway, we're going to saying Ameen. I think that's a good note to stop on, inshallah. So I'm going to read very quickly. It is recommended for every reciter, whether or not it is during prayer, to say Ameen when finishing Al-Fatiha. The rigorously authenticated hadith concerning it are well known and numerous. We mentioned in the previous section that it is recommended to separate the end of Al-Fatiha and Ameen with a brief pause of silence. Ameen means, "Oh God, answer." Other opinions are that it means, "And let it be like this," or "And like this let it be." Make it so of this. um, only you are capable. Do not let you down our hope. Or, O God, entrust us with goodness. Other opinions proffer. It is God's seal on his worshippers, and it repels disasters from them. It is a level in paradise that one who says it deserves. It is one of the names of Allah Most High, but that the accomplished authorities, muhaqiqun, say and the majority of scholars have rejected this. Or it has a Hebrew word which has been Arabized. Abu Bakr al-Waraq said that it is power endowed in the supplication which causes mercy to descend, and there are more opinions yet. For me, the strongest opinion is that it actually means, "Oh Allah, accept this." There are various pronunciations concerning Ameen. The opinions of the scholars are the purest linguistically is Ameen, with elongation and lightening the meme. A second opinion is with the alif being short, Ameen. These two opinions are well known. A third opinion is that it's Ameen, is with Imala, in which the alif is pronounced like the Ya. Ameen, like A. And this is what we find in some churches in America. Amen. But this would be Ameen. It sounds cool, but it's not the strongest opinion, so don't do it. With elongation between the two. Al-Wahidi conveys this from Hamza and Al-Kisai. The fourth opinion posits that the meme has a shedda elongation, like Amin or Amin. Al-Wahidi conveys this from Al-Hasan and Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad. He said this is confirmed by what was related from Ja'far al-Sadiq, that he says its meaning is to you to who we direct ourselves, and you are most generous than to turn back someone seeking you. These are Wahidi's words. This fourth opinion is very strange indeed, and most of lexicographers consider it an error made by laymen. A group of our Shafi companions said, whoever says it in their prayer like this, his prayer is invalid. Arabic linguists say that the proper Arabic usage demands that there be a full stop after the noon, Ameen, because it has the rank of phoneme. If it is connected, the noon gets a fatha because of the consecutiveness of two silent letters, just like it is given a fatha in the words ayn and kaf, ayna kafa, and it is not given a kasra since kasra is heavy after ya, amini. This is a summary of what is associated with the pronunciation of amin. I have expanded on this, providing the proofs and additional opinions in my book Tahdhib al-Asma wal-Lughat. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We came to an end of this class. Tomorrow I'm going to look for a better setting, yani for the class of the angels, inshallah. So no worries, I will try to be, if I find yani a place, a nice little place with a good background. Or we could do it via Zoom, which would allow me to project the slides as well. I will see this with Khayyam, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, everybody. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your presence. Um, yes, I said it's a bid'ah and not in a good way. No. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu fikum. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.